Here we are. Let's do this thing. So, Danny, what's up, man? Life, everything?
Yeah, life, work, family, lots of family. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm in a cycle of just taking care of business and trying to keep my family as the absolute center of my world, and that's pretty much all I ever do.
Which is pretty amazing considering how far you've come. What is it? 2020? What year is this?
We're in 2021.
21? Wow.
Yeah. I feel like there's like space movies that will jump to this year and they're like, no, we're flying and in cars,
In cars.
Yeah.
So let's cover a little history for anybody who may want to take the time to watch this.
Okay.
You and I met somewhere around 2008, 2009.
Correct.
Somewhere in there. Start off with our first visit and why we met.
So, well, first off, let's start with those years are fairly to moderately foggy. So I know a lot of recollection, right? Not only from my mother, who, nowadays doesn't remind me as often, but she still sometimes feels the need to make sure that I know where I came from, which is always good for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
But I was drugging and running back in the day, and I was in this cycle of trying to understand what I kind of wanted out of life, at the same time just trying to figure out how to not let my life go up in absolute flames. I think when you and I met, I was in the process of being at Celebrate Recovery, and then probably trying to navigate this walk or navigate my way into some sort of sobriety. And I would say in those years, it was probably fairly reluctantly, because it didn't actually take any kind of hold, obviously, until 2010. But when you and I think our first meeting was probably set up by my mom, because at that time I was, she was, you need to go do this. You need Jesus. And so she introduced me to you, and I was like, Jesus? Are you here?
No, so if you're watching this, you should know that he literally said, Jesus, are you here? He was pretty far out there when we first met.
What's that song? Jesus, take the wheel?
Jesus, take the wheel. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Jesus needed to.
Yeah. And then we met at your office at the Underground, which you and Will had ragtagged some stuff together in there at that point. And I thought this was super official, and I had just now entered therapy. Hence, one of my first questions was, so do I lay down? How does this work? What do I do? And you probably looked at me like I was crazy.
Do you remember what I said to you at the end of the meeting?
Probably not.
I actually, you're like, so do I come back? And I said, yeah, but next time don't be so stoned.
Oh. See, I thought I was doing good that day.
You said it then. You go, you can tell? I said, if I couldn't tell that you were stoned right now, then I shouldn't be doing this job. And that was our first meeting.
Welcome to the meeting of the minds.
There we go. But I think, it's interesting, and why I really wanted to talk to you, in this way is we were brand new at the time. And you mentioned it with the office was just like this ragtag thing that we put together. Really wasn't an office at all. It was just
like a storage room.
It was like a storage room with a couple desks.
Yeah, that you found like on the side of the road.
Yep.
Down on 22nd or something.
Down on 22nd, and I was still riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
I didn't have a driver's license.
You had later, right after that, you had the interlock.
Yeah.
On the white truck.
Good times, man. These were good times.
They were very humbling. They helped you bring you down to your.
Yeah.
Where you had nowhere to go but up.
We really didn't. So you were, I think you were like the third guy in TI, or maybe, I don't know, whatever, third, fourth, somewhere in the early days. But, we had no rules in the house at the time. We didn't know what we were doing. I'm not really sure I know what I'm doing now, but we really didn't know what we were doing back then. And you came in as this kid that was definitely, how much younger were you than everybody else?
Oh my God, I was by far, because it was so, you guys were so focused on, the outreach for the homeless community and for those broken men that, and a lot of times people didn't reach that level of brokenness, until quite a few years later down the road. I am very ambitious, and so I felt the need that I needed to get there pretty quickly. So I was 23, 24 when I came in, with all kinds of stories, as you've heard throughout the years. But it was very, very, very different. And I remember when we initially met, obviously I went back out for a couple more years and really found my bottom, which you don't realize that those horrible things that you go through and the stories and stuff that you run across, you think they're going to be this Achilles heel to you your whole life, and through the process, these things turn into like the biggest and best things that have ever happened to you, because of the reality that it kind of brings to your life and the balance, that it helps you push forward throughout the rest of your life. So
I think unfortunately some people don't find that place, and they don't make it. We were just now, right before this talk, we were looking at a picture of an old baseball game that we were at, and you said, unfortunately, a lot of the guys in this picture are no longer with us.
Yeah,
and that is a sad reality of addiction. Is a lot of people don't make it. A lot of good people don't make it.
Yeah,
but you did. You're one of the ones that
surprisingly,
but I and you're in a very small percentile, even smaller than the small. And that is, you're a guy who's made it, but your exit from TI was not necessarily
the good one.
Wasn't a glorious one.
I was wondering if that part of the story was going to come up, but we can get back to that.
We'll get back to that. We don't want to start with the end. And,
we want to leave a little suspense.
But for real, you've superseded what I thought you would ever do. You're now, what are you now?
Man, it's May 10th, 2010 is when I went into the SAL, and shout out to the Salvation Army. With them, they taught me this good structure of how to get sober. And as I was talking to Cole earlier, the TI, there's two different sides that I see to recovery. There's the very hard, like, hey, you got to stay sober. Right. And there's a lot of people out there that get sober or they get clean, right? They're not drinking or using or anything like that anymore. But then there's a different side of it, right? So there's the sobriety side, which is more of, okay, hey, now that I'm not doing this, that, and the other, what do I want my life to look like?
Right.
What's the quality that I want my life, and what do I want out of my life? And a lot of times people are like, oh, well, this is it. At least I'm not drinking and drugging. And that was it for the longest time, is, hey, I just need to stop beating myself over the head. And finally it got to the point to where, I realized that the power that I had, I could just go after whatever I wanted. And if I failed, who cares? Because I had literally almost died probably 100 times before that. So everything else that kind of came at me throughout life was kind of paled in comparison, on the fear factor level, if you will.
Yeah. But I think that, most people, and that's funny because that's actually been one of the main topics that I have been trying to push into the new generation of men in the ministry, and letting them know, like, you've let life circumstances and the world dictate who you are for far too long. It's time to take back your life and own your decisions, own your destination, own what it is you become. Because actually, you're the only person who has any control over who you become.
Correct.
Only you can decide who you'll be tomorrow. Now, some could argue I don't have that choice, or I can't do that. But no matter what, eventually the truth comes out, and it is your decision who you become.
Correct. And a lot of times, people who come from just being beaten down so much, those little victories are everything.
Yeah.
And they really are. And that's what, especially in the very beginning, that's what keeps you just moving forward.
Yeah.
Once I reached that point to where I was like, okay, well, I'm, gonna kind of throw caution to the wind, and we start had initiative builds up and going, and I, had done construction before, but I'd found out that I just loved basically tearing stuff up and breaking things, and then and calling you and saying, hey man, I got to figure out how to fix this, and then it just kind of pushed me into that world, and I went after it with everything that I had, and from the initiative to after the initiative, and then where I am now, but a lot of people take, hey man, I got this great job and I'm not going to do it, or I'm not going to go beyond that, when I think that addicts, we are so much more special than what people
absolutely
think, and not necessarily other people. I think that addicts have this this vision of themselves of, they're always going to fail, or they're not good enough or whatever. And I see it almost the opposite. Like, we have so much power, and addicts have the ability to, start businesses, to be on top of any and every career that they walk into, because, the thing that was holding them up throughout their entire life was drugs and alcohol, and then beating themselves up. Once you find a way to kind of shed those things and shed those chains that those hold on you, again, like I said before, why not fail? The most things that I've learned is from me failing.
It's that's actually pretty much some spot on wisdom. I hadn't really thought of it in those terms in a really long time, but that is the truth. It's like, why not fail? Why not give it a shot? But so many people that make it somewhat in recovery, a year, whatever, sober, and they get that first job and they just play safe.
Yep.
They play it safe from there, and they try to build the American dream from there. Yeah. And ultimately, the American dream is elusive, if anything.
Yeah, it's different for everybody. So.
Yeah. Well, the American dream of the big house, 4 cars, hot wife,
4 cars,
whatever. I don't know, dog, cat, Chihuahua. Yeah. But
I was trying to get a bicycle back in the day.
Yeah, we'll get back to the bicycle. You took my bicycle, and then somebody took it from you. Yeah. So
there's a lot of things taken back then. It was like just this rotating. Whoever had one thing, I'm sure somebody else wanted it, and it was up for grabs.
It was up for grabs. But no, so the person who gets there and they try to play it safe, but ultimately what ends up happening is that is not fulfilling, because you have to figure out what fulfills your life and what makes you want to stay sober. And if you don't know what it is that's going to make you want to stay sober, then you're not going to stay sober. Mm-hmm. And if you're just haphazardly going about it and, try this job or try this girl or try this situation, just hoping like this magical thing happens, that's not. You've got to set out on a path that you see what you want, what you knew.
Correct.
I remember when you left, and you saying, like, I loved construction. I loved being a foreman, and that's what I want to do. And you went and you were building sidewalks or something like that at first. But you did it. Yeah. You knew. So let's talk about just kind of, your early days in TI and how, from when you walked in, I mean, we were brand new. We were trying to figure it out. And then by the time, it came for you to leave, we had started the construction business.
Correct, yep.
And actually, you were supposed to run the construction business. But
I got involved with the initiative and grew in my relationship with God, and doing work, doing construction, living life, doing Bible studies, and really showing God's grace in my life through what I've been through my addiction, through all the hard times in my life, and showing how God's brought me through that. The initiative saved my life. I fell in love with God this way, and that's pretty much it.
But like I said, things.
Well, Rick and I had it for a while.
Right. But that transition of like, what were we doing during the day when you first got here compared to by the time you left?
Oh, nothing. In the beginning, it was
shout out to us.
Yeah, it was the ragtag of just okay. Hey, what are we gonna get in today? It was like Pinky and the Brain back in the day. It was like everybody looked around the room like, hey, so who's got the next best idea? What are we gonna do now? So in the very beginning, it was we came from. I came from the Sal, and I came into the initiative and met Ricky and Jason at that point. And I remember us having being at the Giddens house and having fires every single night.
You know, the guys don't have fires anymore.
Oh man, we used to have so many fires, like that was how we would just like get stuff off of our chest or like settle arguments or anything. It was all around this like round table of a fire. So when I first got in, I was shy and at first, and then Ricky George was kind of took me under his wing as like this Papa Bear as he does with a lot of people, and he just makes you feel so comfortable just being able to be yourself and joke. And it was like I came from the Salvation Army where it was this very strict about Jesus and recovery and this, that, and the other, and then all of a sudden I was still working there, so I still had a little bit of that, but I still had the freedom of being able to feel like a normal person, like a regular human being again. So it was interesting in the very beginning because you guys, I think at that point you were doing some side projects, and I think Initiative was the Village was a concept at that point.
Yeah.
And obviously things move forward, I stopped working at Salvation Army. I was working for a lawn crew, and that was horrible. It was like over summer, and so it was like the hottest summer I'd ever had in my entire life, and I was like, I do not want to do this anymore. And it came to you right after you guys had the Initiative builds going, and I was like, can I just come and work with you guys, because this sucks. Not saying that doing that was going to be much better for me, but it was. It was obviously.
True. But then we kind of got the first contract, and we became subcontractors.
Yep.
And we started getting a bunch of work, and you were running crews and
breaking stuff,
breaking a lot of stuff, and we did a lot of demo back in those days.
Oh my God, those houses where we demo like the whole house, and it was just all plaster, everything. I remember that one off of like Central, right off of like between Hillsboro and the one that we separated that garage. Oh my God, that was the worst.
Yeah, that was bad. But it's funny because you came in, didn't know anything about construction.
Correct.
And you're now a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, tell us about that. I'm
an actual licensed general contractor. So I, over the years of past the initiative of starting, as he's saying, I was doing sidewalks and stuff for a company, and literally getting beat down by concrete and the sun every day, and slowly worked my way up into more the interior finishes of a home, and then into doing bathrooms and kitchens and so on and so forth. So it snowballed over the past 10 years of doing side work, and then finally running other people's companies for them, to a point that the world works in really weird ways. So the last company I worked for, the owner of the company actually had an addiction problem, ended up going into rehab at the very end of my tenure with him, because I was running his whole business. At that point, he had no real responsibility other than like put the check in the bank and give me the next job. And so I at that point, I look around, I'm talking to my mom, and I'm like, hey, I'm talking to my fiance, that was my fiance, now my wife, and I said, well, I'm literally running this entire business for this person, doing all of this stuff. Like, I could just do this myself. Mm-hmm. Well, this weird turn of events, I ended up getting hurt. So I hurt my hip, broke my hip, had to have a hip replacement, went out for months for my hip replacement. In that time, I convinced my wife, who was then my wife, who was pregnant, that I was going to quit my job and go back to school. And I went to Camtech and went and got my license and stepped out on a wing and a prayer and never looked back.
But I remember you came and talked to me when your boss was doing drugs. You came in and you were like, man, I need some help. I don't know what to do.
I mean, the whole time it's funny because the relationship that you have with like somebody who's your boss, right? So the boss is like, hey, well, you got to do this, so on and so forth, and you're supposed to listen. Well, at the end of it, I'm telling this guy like, hey man, like, you got a problem. He's like, what do you know about it? I'm like,
I actually know a lot.
I had a problem.
I remember that's what you came in at. You're like, should I confront him? Oh.
Yeah, and at that point, I with anybody if they are going through these struggles and they're at that point, right, they're not necessarily thinking clearly, and then as equally the people in their family who are surrounding them aren't necessarily thinking clearly either, because it's just this state of a little bit of chaos before they kind of get it figured out. So they kind of tried to lean on me to take over this guy's company, and I was like, I don't really want to do that, and kind of I backed off a little bit, and again, God works in mysterious ways, and the way that it all turned out, ended well. He's now sober, and I was able to kind of go off and do my own thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of amazing when you think about it. If you persevere and you keep, your focus on what's important, what God will do. It's like, even, in your time with, with the initiative and everything you learned, you were also like really spiritual too. Jesus really got a hold of you, and you were a leader for the men in that area as well. So I think, that foundation being set, do you have some of the better memories of those times of being with the men you want to share?
I do. So one memory, so speaking of being spiritual, right? So I remember going to that church, the river, and getting hit with the laughing spirit. I'll tell you what, and I thought this was just completely ridiculous. And then I go.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
I come back, and like the next 2 days, I could not stop laughing. I'm like, George, what is wrong with me?
That's right. You came in and talking to me and Julie, and you're like, is this normal? I just can't stop.
I just could not stop laughing. And it was really odd, but like I said before, it's like the Sally taught me what recovery was, and the initiative taught me how to get that connection with Jesus, and without both, right, then I wouldn't be where I am, not only with my walk, but with my family. Like, none of that would be here. It'd be like just a ghost, or a phantom of what I would possibly want one day, because it takes that balance. Like, every time when I even still, I'm still very much so going after the next thing, the next thing that I want, desire, not only on the business side, on my family side as well. And I try to live every day, today I'm going to do better than I did yesterday. Tomorrow, same thing from the day before, and always have this goal of like, hey, this is where I'm going, and what is it going to take? And over 10 years, 10 years ago, I didn't know. I had no idea that I was going to end up where I am. I honestly just wanted to stop, being sick, and stop doing meth, and stop doing all this stuff. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I had no idea that, I would be able to be blessed as much as I am. But it's all just, you have to know and take that next step towards what you want to do. And right. You may not recognize it, or you may not see it right now, but hey, that one step is one more step closer. And you may just think, oh, it's only this little thing. Well, that little thing will lead to the next little thing, and so on and so forth. And I'm very much so still a believer in that. Even if it doesn't pan out, I still took these steps, and it still moved me forward in one direction.
Yeah, I think, when it came time, and we had to make the hard decision, with you, and I'm not going to go into specifics because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I'd embarrass the hell out of you, but I mean the other people involved. So, but I think you understood where we were coming from.
Correct. Yeah.
You knew like what we were all about, but you also owned your own decision. I remember you being like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do moving forward." And I never stopped loving you, and me and you have obviously stayed friends, and hopefully, I've helped you out, and you've helped me out along the way.
I don't know how much I've helped you out.
That's okay. I wanted to
make me feel better. It's all right.
No, but the reality is you sort of knew then, okay, this decision on their part has to be made, but you also knew like you couldn't take the foot off the gas for yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
And honestly, I remember meeting with our board of directors that after the decision had been made and we knew we were going to lose you. And, anybody listening or watching, that was like a hard thing for us because we were a brand new organization.
Yeah.
You were my top leader, Ricky ran the house, but you were pretty much everything else.
Yeah.
And so making a decision to let you move on was hard on us. I remember being like, man, he was going to run the company. This is tough. But I also was more concerned about you, and I didn't feel for a second like you wouldn't do the right thing. I'm like, Danny's learned enough here.
There's probably a moment moments, I think that I had probably leading up to that point, and it probably happened probably 6 months leading up to that point where I was probably being selfish and probably looking at things in a way to where I was seeing something different, right? And I may not have understood it at that moment. And I think that towards those moments, it was just like the culmination of a bunch of different lines coming to a head, which I think kind of had to happen in order for, because I don't think we would have like made the break any other way,
right?
So I think something had to have happened in order for that to happen. And again, it's another way that God's like, hey, listen, this is where we're going to go now. We're not going to continue down this road because obviously there's a reason behind it.
Right.
Either wouldn't have been healthy for me or for you or for the initiative, or for some guy who came in and I might have been pissed off or something and gave him bad advice and it could have led down a wrong road. There's who knows at this point,
Right.
But I remember I held a little bit of animosity for a little bit because again, as men, we want to think that we're right, in a lot of ways, and it took time and just wisdom and us coming kind of back together on multiple occasions to say, all that was just emotions, and the breaking of these people who I thought were going to be, I was going to be so much involved with for so long because it really felt like that's where it was going, So we had talked about ministry. We had talked about, I went to Peru, went to Honduras. We did, it was on this trajectory, but, life kind of went left.
But did it? You know what I mean? But did it really? Because here we are.
Clearly not.
So I think when the organization even started, I wanted to create something that was a community for broken men to come and do life together. And it's every bit as true with the guy that leaves, that wants to stay part of us, as it is with the guy that could be living here, like John Clowers, who's now been here for 10 years.
I remember.
We have a guy here 10 years for real. So, but the point is, it's almost like the spirit of the Timothy Initiative is this community of brothers that love each other, that'll be there for each other in their darkest moments, and that's still true. It's not only true in the houses, but once again, it's about that decision you make once you walk out those doors. And so, ever since you've left, I've always told the men that leave, it's like, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm living on 22nd Avenue for the foreseeable future, and I've been there, and I'll always
almost paid off,
right? And I'll always be there, and the organization will be there for you whenever you need us. If you choose to need us, that's totally up to you. And a lot of men don't choose that, unfortunately, but the option is always there to know you can always come home in some fashion, form, or whatnot. So it's great.
And it's a lot of, for me, I think men struggle with pride in itself. And so even just like admitting to somebody, hey, man, I was wrong, or hey, this wasn't the right decision for me to do and stuff like that. It takes probably a little bit of time, and, it's humbling to say the least, but speaking of just always having that home, like Ricky George and I still talk. We'll still hear a song and call each other and say, and just to say, hey man, like, hey, I love you and I care about you. And, those are those relationships that you just don't come across, normally or in life very often. And when you do, and you make those connections, it's like there's this unspoken thing that where no matter what, Ricky George would call me tomorrow and say, hey man, I need this, and this. And I'll say, okay, I try and figure out a way to make it happen. Or same with you or anybody, who called on me, I would do everything possible to be there.
I think you said something earlier that I'm definitely going to focus on with the men, but, addicts can do so much.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we've conditioned ourselves to believe we can't do anything except the bare minimum. But the reality is, if you've been in addiction, hardcore addiction, for any amount of time, you've somehow managed to stay alive, then you got potential, man. Yeah. Whatever effort, I've always said, man, whatever effort you spent on trying to stay high, paying for drugs, getting the drugs,
the hustle,
all that, for all these years, if you can focus that same energy, that same momentum, but doing it on something positive, man, you can set the world on fire.
Imagine all the BS that you spewed out over the years if you put that towards greater good.
Right? But it's also true, like in the relationships with people that we're in recovery with, and if you stop and realize we're going through a war together, and people that go through war together should have each other's back, and they should love each other and should be there for each other.
Yeah.
And you've managed to do that with Ricky, with me, with Chris Bryant, like our solid core guys that have been around for 10 years.
Chris Bryant's my neighbor now.
I know. He was at Bible study last night, and I embarrassed him in front of his son. I totally slipped up. He was at Bible study last night with his son, and I wasn't thinking, and I told the story about how when he was separated from his wife. Anyway, his son's looking at him like, what?
His son's very like
on it.
now.
Anyways, sorry, Chris. When you watch this, I apologize. But
Holla at you.
But holla at you. But but if a lot of times people go into a situation where they're trying to rebuild their life, and everything's an inconvenience, and everybody's a pain, and they don't recognize like this moment too is special.
Yeah.
If you make it special,
it's the journey.
It is the journey, man. And everybody's so focused on wanting to be
on the other side
of it that they miss the relationships you could be building, the things you could be learning, and instead they are doomed to repeat the cycle.
Yeah, what were those things that we did at the Underground where we had those? It was like once a year.
Oh, the Jesus encounter.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, man. Some of those, made profound impacts on me. Just it brought me to a level to where you felt so connected, right, to not only God, but to these men that are surrounding you. And I remember, I think the first one, I think Jason Veal was still here, and it was just, it changed me, and it really, and it just changed my perspective, and it changed my view of what I thought God was, and for so long I thought God was like this, he was a judger, right? So I thought I had always done things wrong, right, in society's eyes for so long, and you get conditioned to that. You get conditioned to, hey, you're wrong. And I think that was one of the first times to where, not necessarily saying I was right, but it was almost like God saying, hey, listen, like you are unique, you are special, you are, worthy, and it's moments like that change you, change your heart, Addiction can, in my opinion, harden you very, very much so. And I think I was hardened in the very beginning, especially with how I ran the construction crews.
Yeah, plus you had a major chip on your shoulder because you were so young and everybody else was old. So
oh my God,
you had a point to prove.
I can run around these guys.
But no, it is that personal, intimate relationship with Jesus that we often miss or we can't understand in our early recovery because we do have our defenses up. Yeah. I was actually talking about it with a core group last night where one of them had mentioned, man, I never really thought about it, but God is pleased with us. He's pleased with me. And that's too personal. Nobody wants to handle that personal side of God. But that is who he is. He's not just this judger. He's not just this God that wants to look at us from afar. It's a God that wants to know you face to face.
Right.
And that's something that every person in addiction needs, because every person in addiction is probably there because of some emotional pain and trauma, and only the God who created the universe can heal that.
Yeah, it's like once you're in it, right, it's, how many times did somebody tell you how much you were loved when you were in your deep addiction, other than like some girl you might have been with or guy you might have been with that was probably a very toxic relationship in the first place, right? So it was like, it's like God saying, listen, you are enough. You don't have to be somebody else. You don't have to be this person with a four room house and 4 cars and a dog and a cat and all that. Like you by yourself right now, even if you're sleeping on the side of the road, like you are enough. You're enough for God. You're enough for him to come after you and pick you up from where you are and to bring you into him, So I don't know, that just, once you kind of realize that, and once God kind of makes that connection, because we can't make that connection on our own. In my opinion, that's something that like he's got to fix some stuff, to find that pathway through the thorns, to say, hey, listen, I'm here and you're enough, and we're gonna do this together.
Yeah, and you brought up the Jesus encounters that we would go through, and I always found it so powerful. It's like you go through that first one, and it's special and powerful for you.
Yeah.
But then, volunteering at the next one and watching it be powerful for another man
is just as powerful,
if not more powerful in some cases.
Yeah.
Anybody listening or watching Jesus Encounters, like a weekend event that we would do where you get to know Jesus deeper and more personal, and it has literally changed so many lives in the organization, and definitely mine every single time we went through one.
Yeah, it's like if like you never knew how to be intimate with Jesus, and I say Jesus, right? Because in my opinion, like that's my relationship is with Jesus. It's not a church, not this, it's not that, it's not anything. My church is in this heart right here, and that's where I meet Jesus and say, hey man, let's kick it. So but it's so powerful, how far not only just I've come, but my emotions and my relationship and that connectivity, was just made such a profound impact.
Yeah, I think it's, it's funny because for me, standing as an outsider, watching literally over 1,000 men come in and out of the doors as the initiative, and watching the guys that have made it, the guys that haven't made it, the guys that are brand new, the guys that are back again for multiple time, and recognizing the traits in the ones that make it, and the traits in the ones that you don't. Obviously, there's a lot more traits in the ones that don't, because majority of people don't actually make it. But I was just sharing with the men last night. I'm like, every guy that has made it has been sold out for Jesus. And put it this way, every guy, and this is what I said at Bible study, every guy that's made it with, in any way that you would consider making it, has been a guy that was willing to lift his hands at worship on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And so if you're still got your hands in your pocket, you're not going to make it.
Yeah. It's like you have to be open, right?
Yeah.
And that's, Chris and I, we had lunch the other day, and it always comes up of just like, our relationship and God and stuff like that. And, the hardest thing is for me, I think in the beginning was, first off, is this real?
Yeah.
The underground in itself, especially at that point, was very, is intimidating. To say the least, especially from somebody who I came from like South Tampa Fellowship and stuff like that, to see the living embodiment of the Spirit, right? Because that's what I felt like it was, or that's how I took it as, was a little overwhelming. and half times you're like, all right, how is this authentic, right? And the moments where you really kind of have that realization is like when you are, worshiping, and you don't care what anybody on either side of you is doing, and the only thing that matters is this praise song that you feel like you're just having this direct conversation with God, or He's speaking directly into you, and that it was like some of those moments that you're like, whoa, all right,
whoa.
It's different, and until you make that connection, or it's like you have to be able to give up. You have to be able to just put down the fight for a minute and allow yourself to be open to receive God and to receive the blessings that He has for you, because He has them for you.
Oh yeah.
Are you willing to first off recognize it, and are you willing to accept it? Because some people just aren't really ready or willing to accept it.
Yeah, and it's funny just how pride can keep us locked in our misery, and we don't even realize it. Where we're so afraid of looking weird or doing something that somebody can judge us about.
Yeah.
that we forget that we're actually here because of all the stupid crap we did when we were high.
Like our decisions were
Our
so
decisions
good before.
were so good before we got to worship, and we didn't want to lift our arms and worship.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's what made us look stupid.
Yeah, right. You're afraid of looking dumb when you're in worship, but you didn't think it was bad to be naked running around the Christmas tree at the last,
Last
family
office party or
holiday.
something.
It's like, come on, man. And it's funny because it's not even about, I'm lifting my hands because I want to. That first time is like just out of obedience to like knowing God is this one that has pulled you from your darkest moments, and I'm gonna lift my arms to Him, and it's that opening up of your, almost like a literal open of your chest.
Correct.
To breathe and say, "Come into me, God."
I would just try and create this bowl, right? So that way, anything that was coming down, I tried to get as much as possible. Just collect it in the bowl, funnel down.
Funnel down.
It was scientific. It had to work.
It had to work, man. It had to work. It did work. Look at you. You're spectacular.
Yeah.
So
I have all of my teeth.
you do have,
Well, kind of.
yeah. He doesn't even have all his teeth. That's not. No, but so let's tell me about your wife and family.
So my beautiful wife, her name is Carla, and we actually met through a friend of ours who had been trying to kind of get us to meet for like 3 years or 4 years, something like that. And I was at that point in my life running a construction company, and this is the period where I'm like full force going forward. I knew what my end goal was, and there was nothing that was going to step in my way. I was doing that Monday to Friday, and I was basically building my business. Unbeknownst to me at that point, I was running side jobs by myself on the weekends. So literally, when I got a call one day from a friend and said, "Hey, this person I've been trying to get you to meet," and she had sent me a couple pictures, and I was like, "Ooh, all right." And so I was on a side job. She said, "Hey, this person, finally is like, yeah, okay, I'm not dating anybody. Come over. If you want to come, here's your shot right now." So I literally put this window in this person's house as fast as I've ever put a window in, and did like a little change of clothes with some cologne on just so that I didn't stink, and I just bolted, and it was that was
first
it.
sight.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty quick. I told her pretty quickly. I was like, "Listen, you are gonna be my wife." It was like within the first couple months, I'm like, this is gonna happen.
And now you've been married how long?
We are getting ready to celebrate our 5-year wedding anniversary. Yeah, so we've been together 6, going on 7 years. We're getting ready to have our 5-year wedding anniversary in September. Technically, it's July because we got married before we actually had our wedding, if you will. So that's amazing. We have 2 beautiful boys, Bodie and Colby. Yeah, Colby is 1.5 years and Bodie's 3.5. Yeah, we are in the thick of it at the moment, but I mean, it's we talk about the the love of God, and we talk about this relationship that you just wouldn't think that you could ever find. Well, that goes with real relationships too. I never thought that I would be able to find somebody that I loved this much, or that I respected that as much as I did and do, and tell her, there was always something, there was always something missing, right? There was always this X factor that just wasn't there, and I was fairly decisive, and don't get me wrong, I was in probably quite more dysfunctional relationships than I probably needed to be, but every single thing led me to had that list of, hey, these are the things that I'm not gonna put up with in my relationships. And as soon as we met, she's just the light of my life. So that's awesome. Yeah, very blessed, very lucky.
Yeah, it's amazing how, sometimes we don't realize God has something better for us. And we're big in the initiative on, dating and how to go about it. And it's mainly because when we're not ready, we're going to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
We're going to, okay, if you're not ready, you're going to try to fill your insecurity with something that you shouldn't try to fill your insecurity with. And
sins of the flesh.
Sins of the flesh. Yes, we talk about it. Sins of the flesh. It's a class we do. Yeah. But no, you got to be a whole person. And when you're whole, then you got a chance for God to do something spectacular.
Yeah. And if you're not, right, if you don't have like the inside of you figured out, right, then that means that your picker is off. So if your picker's off.
Did you say picker? Because I just want to clarify. Yeah. It was picker. Not, okay.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm going to pick you over there.
Yeah, I got you. I was afraid it was a different vowel after the I.
mean, that's another podcast.
That's a different podcast. Okay.
I don't think it's on this station.
Okay, gotcha. Just want to clarify. Yeah. FCC's listening. Yeah. It was picker.
Picker with a P. Do we need to spell it out? We're gonna have a Sesame Street spelling contest here soon. So, but yeah, so I'd gone through all these dysfunctional relationships and trying to, this may work or this may work, and honestly, it just wasn't. Yeah. None of it was right because I wasn't right, and it took some conditioning and some realizing of how off I was, to then realize what I needed to find, valuable. And the things that were valuable were, her heart and who she was as a person and how she cared for me, herself, and the people around her. And that was, became some of the most important things,
Yeah, I think that's pretty amazing, man. And now you got a construction company.
I got a construction company.
What's it called?
Mars Contracting. So we do. We specialize in high-end residential remodeling for residential and commercial properties. I literally started it, like I said before, kind of on weekends before I really even realized that's what I was doing. It led into me getting my license, and I just worked for the first couple of years by myself and with one guy and just built it into kind of what it is now. I got a couple employees now, and we sub a lot of stuff out, but any way that I can help or manage or run or this or that, if I can find good people, again, the people is what matters, at the end of the day. It's how do you support those people around you, and the people around you, right? What's the condition of their heart? I try not to surround myself with anybody who's toxic or, has a lot of stuff going on in their life, because again, that just doesn't mesh well, right?
Not quite prepared for somebody else's problematic life.
I don't need any more problematic lives.
Good call, man. So, all right, we're getting ready to end. I want to hear from you. Do you have any advice to the addict that might be listening, that's on the streets, in recovery, or just struggling, period?
I never thought that I could actually live a life with Jesus and stuff like that, right? So I always kind of scoffed at it and stuff like that. So, but I guess the best thing I can say is, what do you got to lose? Yeah. Like, just like when I was going into the Sal or something like that, somebody told me, what's 6 months? What have you been doing for the past 6 months? I've been ducking and running and kind of having a job before, I got sober. So what do you have to lose, right? Why not try it this way? And I'd say 9 times out of 10, God's going to surprise you and say, hey, listen, I got way more for you. Yeah. Let's just, what do you need to do next? What's the next thing? What do you need to do tomorrow? How do you set yourself up tomorrow to where you're doing better than you did today? Yeah. And I think if I live like that, then I feel like I'm going to do pretty good moving forward.
Yeah. And I like what you said earlier. Have a good vision of who you want to be.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to change.
It's going to change, but be moving towards that.
Correct.
And don't give up.
Yeah. Don't
give up. Awesome. Danny, love you, dude.
Love you too.
Hope everybody watching loved this. You should have. It was great. Have a great day, man.
Bye.